Bill, one of my old roommates is a cop in North St. Louis County. When all this started to get a lot of attention, I reached out to him to touch base. He let me know that he had been dispersing them for 2 days. He went on to describe this as the best job ever. He's apparently used over $30,000 in gas in the first few days.
That's disturbing.
Oh my God. Tear gas.
I really wonder about, like, cops who actually want to do their job properly.
We've
how
talked
this
about the
completely
militarization of the police on this program many times.
That's right.
And you know what? We probably, over break, we should have probably posted, maybe we should repost or at least tweet out and post on Facebook the interview with Radley Balco.
But these are old themes, too, because it's the militarization of police, but this racial component is just timeless. I mean,
yes.
You know.
But, I mean, just no one would allow for this. No one would allow for this in a white city. It just would not be allowed. I'm sorry. Just no way.
And I think that's the point, right? Is that so maybe some of the equipment is new and disturbing, but like the idea of police treating certain neighborhoods in an occupying military-like manner is not new.
Here's the thing. If you're someone who's not really engaged and sensitive to these things, you see the pictures of those cops in riot gear, and your reaction is not, hey, that's over the top. Your reaction is, man, those protesters must be crazy. You don't see the cops overreacting. You assume that they need to be wearing this stuff. You assume that they're justified in having these tanks. And it's much easier for people to assume that because you're talking about people who are living in abject poverty, who have no voice, who are completely disenfranchised. And I'm telling you, cops would never go like that into a white city. They just wouldn't. And the other effect it has is that if the cops are out there dressed like cops, like people just see in their normal day life, I think it would make it easier to empathize on some level with the protesters. It's really a problem. There's just no way you can put all that gear on, have your laser-sighted weapon, have your canisters of tear gas, have your huge baton, your helmet, your stun guns, your flash grenades, and not see the people who are standing across from you as the enemy. And that is the only thing that I find sort of insightful about how the press is being treated. The cops simply, they're out of control. And the problem is there's no accountability here. There's nothing to say. There's been, as far as I can tell, not one incident where a cop has been in any way reprimanded or sanctioned for the way they've been acting. Has there been one?
Well, not only
appear,
including basically the guy who murdered this kid, which
yes,
sparked this whole
but,
thing.
I mean, you would imagine that the political leadership would be leaning on the cops saying, hey, you got to deal with these guys who are saying to reporters, get out of here, I'll effing blow your head off. At the very least, right? You know, it's
very, 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 very least.
Yeah. Like when I had chores to do around the house when I was a kid, my dad would say, you know what's even sadder than you not doing them? Is like, you know, this is the way I walk into the house. And this is where I go once I get into the house. Why don't you at least clean up that area so that I can't tell that you haven't done anything? And, you know, these cops have no name tags. I mean, that is why, what other possible reason? And if you're afraid about identity, okay, we don't want people targeting police officers, then, which is sort of hard to believe because obviously you can see their face, right? Just assign them all new numbers for this exercise. Your number A357, and only I know who that number relates to. How hard is that to do? You got obviously enough money to buy a tank.
It's also
go to the local print shop and get stickers.
Well, we got to be careful with our budget because of said tank.
Right.
That's also just offensive. Like, you know, in Mexico, cops and special forces guys are murdered regularly and have to wear like ski masks if they take down some cartel guy.
Right.
It's just so ludicrous to even like put that out.
And I'm sorry, the idea that the police would rush into the crowd when they get thrown with a water bottle. I mean, it seems to me that's why you have trained police officers. Big part of the training is do not react to things that are not a threat. Even if it does piss you off. I don't know.
It's also not supposed to be a zero risk profession. I mean, they're supposed to be safe and not harmed. But like, if you're a fire, if you work in the fire department, if you're a cop, if you work in emergency services, by definition,
right? If you
that means you are going to be exposed to some physical risk.
If job number one is to keep a fireman safe, here's the first thing you should do: don't go into a burning building. Exactly. But they do.